Welcome, everyone, again to Disruption Drive. We run a podcast that explores the massive technological shifts and disruptions. I always make it a point to ask, what does the human in the loop look like? My guest today is building the answer to that question. While the automation industry races to perfect physical AI, pouring billions to make technology smarter, Remotics is training the human behind it. They may be the only company we've featured so far that is guaranteed to create more jobs than they displace. Joining us is Sergio Oliveira, the president and chief growth officer of Remotics, and his team leads a global organization dedicated to implementing human intelligence at the very edge of physical AI. Sergio works every day ensuring that the machines move into our world, they maintain a human touch. Sergio, thank you so much for coming on the show. And I actually want to start with the automation side of the universe, just because, and I want to ask you about, look, we talk a lot on this podcast about robotics deployment and autonomous vehicles and specifically. Now, you provide peace of mind to deployment operations. So tell us what those biggest bottlenecks are and where that human in the loop therefore is required and how you're building those.
First of all, thank you, Harry, for the invitation. It's great to be here and talk with you about that. As Remotics, we basically work to accelerate physical AI models, and we think in three main ways to do that. First, it's the risk deployment, right? When we start with the teleops and help the physical AI to improve their models, basically, we are de-risking the risks deployment. Our partners and customers, they can keep the autonomous vehicles or robots earlier because teleoperations covers the autonomy gaps. So the robots start collecting real world data instead of staying in the lab. Second, it creates a perfect training data. Human intervention on the real edge case are exactly the example you want for imitation learning and reinforcing or reinforcement of this learning. We turn those into instructor data sets and feed them back into the model training. The third one is teleops gives continuous feedback on where the models struggle. By seeing where operators intervene most, you get live map of your model's weaknesses and can prioritize improvements. I think that those three main points that were the human intervention or the human training data can help physical AI models get better and implemented faster.
Amazing. So let me ask you this sort of broad question, right? So you know, you're definitely building the teleoperations for physical AI, but it feels like there's a little bit of a race here between technology getting smarter and the human needing to maybe be ahead of the curve, be even smarter. So as this race goes on, and I want to sort of ask you, as AI models, physical AI models get more and more advanced, how do you ensure that your human stays in the loop or stays ahead of the loop?
Yes, absolutely. In our opinion, the way that we see that, the models improve, the percentage of the time of a human needs to intervene will drop, of course, right? But the importance of those interventions goes up. That they will be rarer, riskier, and more complex. So someone will still need to oversee fleets, handle long tail events, managing incidents, and validate the autonomy behaves as expected. So the way that we see today, we have let's say a ratio of more people having more intervention in a number of autonomous vehicles or robots, right? So those fleets will grow. Today, we are talking about hundreds of autonomous vehicles. We are talking about some thousands of robots. It will be millions of robots. It will be thousands or millions of a autonomous vehicles. So we still need someone overseeing those fleets. We still need someone to guarantee or validate the autonomy behaves as expected.
You said rare humans intervention will become rarer, riskier, and more complex. And that begs a sort of a follow-up question, almost an implication of that is that in addition to quality, rarer, riskier, and more complex, you of course have to create a certain volume of a skill set that is not yet abundant in an industry that of course is fairly nascent. Now, I know you're based in Mexico. Of course, you work globally, but I want to ask you, how do you adequately build that skill set before it is required at scale, but you're building it ahead of the curve and essentially keeping the humans ahead of technology?
Sure, sure. We don't see humans versus technology. We it's more about humans moving up the stack, right? So teleoperation itself is an example of autonomy creates new failure models and sort of expectations. And inside remote, because we help basically our partners to automate everything that is repetitive and low value, but we reinvest that into training people for higher value work, handling rare edge case, designing better procedures, creating data, and supervising AI performance. So the human stay ahead of the technology by becoming the person who designs, supervise, and improve the systems instead of competing with them on tasks that the machine will be inevitably do cheaper, right?
And that's a very profound thought. And humans are not competing, but improving, designing and of course optimizing the AI machines themselves. They're going up the scale. That's a very profound statement you just made. And do you? I want to talk a bit about your market itself. Do you? I know you work currently in Mexico and you're offering same time zone operations in Mexico. Are you building that operations on technology that can technically find this sort of resource and any major AV deployment? I know Europe and China have definitely got some of those on their own. Or are you primarily focused on the United States market?
Is our first nearshoring hub because it offers excellent proximity to US and in Canada as well, but with similar time zones as you said, but also with cultural alignment, low latency because latency is a concern when we are talking about teleoperation and this kind of services that we are providing. But we think of Remotics as a network of human in the loop hubs. Over time, the same playbook, recruiting, training, tooling, quality system can be replicated in other regions.
Yeah,
So we can support fleets in European and Asia time zones as well.
amazing.
The nearshoring idea is less about a single geography and more about building operation close enough, time zone, language, culture to make collaboration with our customers seamless.
And on the question of you mentioned, I think language and culture, and I want to ask you a sort of maybe a philosophical question a little bit, right?
Mhm.
How does so essentially are you trained? You mentioned a while that the remote operators and the humans are training the next generation of AI, right? They're effectively acting as that feedback loop. So how does that work? How does that work? I know you're offering data labeling services as well. Are you basically training the human to become the teacher of next generation? Are you accelerating physical AI because there's a human in the loop? And is that how is it essentially how is it going to impact the development of physical AI? Because now you
Oh,
have a
yes,
better feedback mechanism. Because versus, let's say,
that's
having an
correct.
automated feedback mechanism, what would that? How was the comparison? Is the human actually better?
Our operators are literally teaching the next generation of physical AI, not just driving the robots, right? Right. So every time a teleoperator resolves a difficult situation, that intervention generates high value data, egocentric videos, commands, context about what worked or what didn't. We capture, clean, and label that data and feed it into our customers' training pipeline so model can learn from the human decisions.
Right.
In that sense, the operator is both the backup driver, let's say in that way, but also the domain expert whose behavior we want AI to imitate. Over time, their expertise is distilled into the better policies, fewer interventions, and safer autonomy.
On the aspect of becoming a domain expert, I want to press you on something, which is we are seeing the fleets, underlying fleets that are, of course, being deployed change quite a bit. These fleets are increasingly becoming software defined, but at the same time, they have the physical infrastructure of a car, a chassis, tires, windshields, and so on. And so, how do you envision that, and you've always said you're really keeping the human ahead of the technology curve and, moving them up. But are you envisioning mechanics and technicians specifically, which are,
Mhm.
typically involved in a car's current deployment? Uh, are they becoming software debuggers? And so tell us about that journey, because where do you see this ramp for a technician of a car to move
Mhm.
up, to change in the world of robotics and autonomy?
Yes, that's true. In my opinion, when the SDVs increase, the classic range-only mechanic is becoming a hybrid role, part technician, part software troubleshooter. We provide today the remote technician assistance and troubleshooting teams that is already living in that world. They combining an understanding of robotics hardware with logs, telemetry, and remote diagnostic tools to triage issues and push fixes. Uh, in the way that I see the evolution of for field mechanics will be very similar. It means that basically they will be uh, trained to read diagnostics, collaborate with remote experts, and think in terms of sensors, networks, and machine learning systems, not only just motors and brakes. We can still provide this remote second level, like a control tower that supports those on-site technicians as fleets scale. But in definitively the field mechanics needs to improve their skills to be more software troubleshooters than only mechanics.
And I want to walk me through a little bit of that leap, right? Because a mechanic on average, look, this is classically been seen
Mhm.
as a blue collar job, and of course, a high value blue collar job at the same time. But leaping from that, a person who's, used to turning wrenches to becoming a software developer, effectively, software debugger, not even more than a software developer. What does that look like? And I know Remotics, are you training those people, effect, or are you taking software developers and making them technicians, or are you taking technicians and making them software developers?
It's a totally new position, right? But in our case, it works better if we can see someone with a very good experience in software uh, problem solvers or debuggers, and adding some skills regarding to the hardware itself. It has been a better solution for us in our case specifically, right? I cannot say that is the right response for everyone, but it's what working better for us. Um, in the same way, basically, we have, for example, teleoperators or drivers, let's say for yard trucks or forklifts or other heavy machines. In the beginning, because we started Remotics 4 years ago, so we have a lot of different phases and experience on that space. We try to get someone with experience driving yard truck, let's say, and train that people to be or to do the same but remotely. And the response was not so good as to get someone with more familiar with technology and
And,
teach them,
and you were able to teach them
train
to
them
train them
to
on some
do
work itself.
to do that to drive this vehicle remotely.
So if you were to advise, let's say, someone who's of course worried about their jobs getting obsolete, what is your advice to how does a human stay ahead of technology? And of course, Remotics, I know you're really building that platform, but what is your advice but what should you learn about?
I think that the most important point when we are talking about these new positions, because when we are talking about these big explosion of new robots or autonomous vehicles, first, the acceleration of this process is because for most of the markets or developed markets, we have a problem with labor shortage. We still have people or the lack of people to work in different industries for the markets because let's say when we are talking about warehousing, right? Normally the warehouse for a forklift operator, they are not inside the big cities. They are far from where the people live, and it's harder to get labor to cover those positions or truck driver, right? So what we see or what we are seeing is much more than a competition between technology and people. What we are seeing is these technology are opening completely new roles,
Right.
like teleoperators, human in the loop, supervisor, data specialists, AI ops engineers. So the way that we see it change a little bit the dynamic and how the human work for those
Absolutely.
needs that new market then just replace people for the machines. You know,
And I want, of course, you're the corporate entity, of course, building a lot of these training ecosystems for clients. But this seems like, and would you agree that this is an area that I think communities, governments even need to start paying more attention to because as we upskill our population, this needs to be a huge focus as of course as automation hits us.
That's true. I am a true believer that technology helps a lot. It's a very good tool to solve the problems that the industry has today. To cover some positions that the industry are not able to cover with the let's say traditional workers, but at the same time it's opening a lot of new roles, and I still think that all the governance, all the supervision, all the overseeing of this technology will require more and more people and will open more and more opportunities for the people in general.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So Sergio said more and more people. What a profound note to end on. The idea that the human in the loop isn't a bridge to full autonomy, but a permanent pillar of the automation economy. In fact, the work that a human does is going to become rarer, but definitely riskier and more complex for the automation. Sergio, I want to thank you, first of all, for building a future that keeps people humans at the center of disruption, and of course, for coming on the show. Thank you so much.
Much, Harry. It was pleasure to join to your podcast, and yeah, thank you.